the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I'll watch them roll away again. Yeah, I'm sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, headed for the Frisco Bay. I've had nothing to live for, look like nothing's gonna come my way, so I'm just gonna sit on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. Look like nothing's gonna change, everything still remains the same. I can't do what 10 people tell me to do, so I guess I'll remain the same. Sitting here resting my bones, and this loneliness won't leave me alone. This 2,000 miles I roam just to make this drop my home. Now I'm just gonna sit at the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. Sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time.
Good night to one, good night to all. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Maritime Matters. I am your host, Captain Glenn Bain. Tonight, we will engage discussions on various recent hot topics, such as Carnival Cruises enhance business with the Bahamas. Did you know that Carnival Corporation have flagged an additional 8 ships under the Bahamas flag over the past 2-year period? Why, we might ask? Likely a bargaining tool for their many projected undertakings in the Bahamas. You see, you hand, go hand, come. You do a little something for us. We could bring some of our ships on your register. You got to remember they make money for each ship. For each cruise ship, the Bahamas government on an annual fee basis makes anything between $30,000 and $50,000 for just one ship. And then, of course, there are other additional charges that the ship has to incur, that the Bahamas Maritime Authority would be gaining. So, by saying to our authority or our government that, look, man, we could bring some more of our ships on your register, that means more money coming to the Bahamas on an annual basis, eh? So that's a bargaining tool. These days, we are such a hot spot for cruise ships. All of the major lines owns private islands here in the Bahamas, and in some cases, numerous private islands or private ports. And as we know, ports are being built all the time by these cruise ships, these cruise ship corporations. There remain grave concerns over RCI's beach club's possible impact. In other words, Royal Caribbean International, who has all those RCCL ships, the largest ships in the world, as you know, have made offer to develop that area near Paradise Island Lighthouse for their passengers to use exclusively. You might ask, what are some of these concerns that people are having with that project? Some of the downtown merchants are having issues. Obviously, Atlantis have expressed certain issues. Obviously, we have a Bahamian that claimed to own some of that or hold a lease to some of that land that want to be used. So there's all kind of concerns surrounding this beach club that RCI want to pump some $200 million in building. So we gotta dive into that in a little bit and see what's going on up in there. Because Mr. Toby Smith, who's an entrepreneur, claims that, you know, he has some smoking gun evidence, something since the court trial said that he doesn't have anything tangible. He says he now have something that he want to present to this next level appeals court pertaining to what his case was all about that he didn't have at the time. So we need to listen, sit back, and find out what's going on. What does Toby have, and how is that going to be factored into this whole operation of RCI getting use of that land where they want to build this extravagant beach club. Well, Carnival's proposed Sharp Rock project add value to Freeport tourism product. You know, Carnival is building a new port. It's going to be one of their biggest ports in the world. I think the second largest. So they're going to dig into the city of Freeport in that area, just heading east, where there's not many residents. Very few residents live out there. So, you know, that's an opportunity to have that area built up. But Carnival will obviously take some of its ships from going into the harbor. Well, of course, they may still go in the harbor, Freeport Harbor proper. But most of their stops would be obviously at the little location that they are setting up. And, you know, we've had many complaints about what's happening in Freeport Harbor as far as when a cruise ship comes there. The people don't want to come off the ship because there's nothing to see. For them to get in the city area, they got to catch a cab and pay one bunch of money. I remember one time when the port was putting in some free ride to get them into the city. They wanted to get some shuttle buses. But a taxi driver say, no, if we need to make this money. That ain't happening. So that didn't even come off. So ships were still going there and people were still making a lot of complaints to tourism that when you go to Freeport, you might as well stay on the ship because there ain't nothing here to do. There's nothing, you know, everything is costly to even get near the shops uptown that sells all the jewelry and this type of thing. And so, you know, that's neither here nor there. But we want to know if this Sharp Rock project with this Carnival port that is going to be owned by Carnival. So I guess all the shops inside there would be Carnival shops, or you would have to pay them rent. I guess the people would be kind of channeled to stay in that area. If they go out of that area, they probably got to get an SD. So there will be opportunities because in that surrounding area there are some things that you can do tours with, and it gives the Bahamian people an opportunity. I think, right? I think that's my view now. Give the Bahamian people an opportunity to build a city around that port. Because everybody wants to stay in the port. Once they come outside the port, they could get some local stuff. They could get some cheaper beers. They could whatever. You know, you gotta be thinking ahead. I don't know how you go in the land, but I'm sure there's areas out there where you could buy land and build things to accommodate. You're talking about thousands of people when that ship comes in. Those ships carry 3,500 to 6,000 passengers. That's big business when that ship is in there. So we as Bahamians need to set up shop to capitalize on what could happen outside of that business, yeah? That's how we need to roll with this one. The Nassau Cruise Port, they geared for a $3 million savings. Annual $3 million. So every year they'll save about $3 million after they do the refinancing. Because apparently they got the loan for some 8%, and now they could get it for 6%. So they're gonna convert that 8% to 6%, and by virtue of doing that, it's $140-something million. By virtue of doing that, they will save over $3 million a year. So kudos to the port, to Global Port Holdings and the Nassau Cruise Port executives for finding a way to save money. I mean, we always trying to save money, and you know, Bahamians own part of that port, so a lot of Bahamians will be saving. You're saving money on the loan. I mean, you can get more money when the shares come around, but because you're saving money on the loan, eventually you will be able to get some more money. So I think that's a big move, and I think it's something that we should all encourage. Okay, so will the cruise port truly be a big plus though for our economy. We have what used to be Prince George Wharf. Now it's Nassau Cruise Port. And prior to, the government basically got all the revenue. But this company, Global Port Holdings, decided they will do the PPP thing, right? The public-private partnership with government. And of course, when they do that, they got to own the most shares. So they probably own, 51%. I know they own more than 50%. That way, government don't have to have a hand in dealing with running that operation. And, we know government don't do a good job running things. So I think that itself would be a good move. But I want to juxtapose that with the airport, where it was a PPP arrangement, but that Canadian company didn't have ownership in the airport. They were brought in to manage the airport. Yes, they made good money, and eventually most of them were replaced by Bahamians, because we could eventually learn to do things. We have a lot of qualified people in this country, so why we couldn't do the same thing with the port? We could have had Global Port Holdings or another entity. Do you know that the cruise ships wanted to pay even more than Global paid the government to regulate that port, and the government still went with Global? I don't know why, but they did. So I don't think it was a good deal. I mean, it's a little late now because Global has it, but I think most of the money made from that port, from the ships and from the users, are going out of the country to the pockets of Global. That money could have been kept in, because when they raised this $140 something or $150 something million, they used Bahamians. They were giving some Bahamians money back. So they're like, we don't have the money to do it. It's our money doing it. But it just so happened that we have a foreign entity in charge of the whole thing, running the whole thing, although ain't much of them foreigners here doing the leg work. They're running the whole thing by virtue of ownership. So the profits go to them. But they're getting most of the profits. Yes, Bahamians getting some profits, not the kind they're getting. So my thing is, I think we made a mistake, and I will maintain and contain, because this is what I was saying from day one. This ain't no hindsight talk. We made a mistake by not owning that and only allowing Global Ports to manage it and give them a stipulated time. You manage it up to this point, and by then we should have professional Bahamians working on a private perspective, not on the government, to keep that going. Okay, that's my view, and I ain't changing that. Now, if you all have a different view and you all think my view is wrong, I would be more than happy to engage you in discussion on that. So these are some of the things we're going to be talking about as we move forward tonight. So please be sure to stay tuned as we delve into those discussions and other maritime matters. Our sponsors for tonight, same old two, One-on-One Pharmacy. You know the deal on them. You walk into the doors, they're on East Street South and Charles Sanders Highway. When you go in there, they treat you like royalty. I mean, they don't leave nothing out. You feel like you was in a place where you had good service. You can fill in your prescription at the store, or you can send your refill via the online site, oneononepharmacy.com. That's One-on-One Pharmacy, all lowercase, all one word, .com. And again, they will treat you with royalty. We are secondly sponsored by Bahamas Maritime Connection. Yes, that's our company. We provide a full slate of ISPS maritime security services, and of course, those who needs that service know exactly what it's all about. So I ain't going down a road of trying to explain all the audits and the training and the plans and assessment. Everybody who know ISPS, who know about maritime security, would know what we offer. So to the listening audience out there, I am honored to advise that I got some good help tonight. With me in studio is my wonderful producer. So ladies and gentlemen, I introduce to you the insatiable, the man of the hour, the man with all the power. He is fully able, quite capable, the one and only Mr. Craig Gibson. Yes, and he sends out a salute to the audience. Ladies, you all should see this military man. I don't know. I got check his background. He was but I don't know, police salute. That's a defense force salute. I don't know what's going on, but Craig got it going on in here tonight. You're listening to Maritime Matters, people. On this show, we talk maritime. Maritime Matters airs weekly at 19:30 or 7:30 p.m. every Tuesday here on Love 97. The purpose of our show is to highlight persons that made significant contributions to maritime in the Bahamas, to sensitize Bahamians of opportunities in the maritime sector, and also we cover current maritime issues from a domestic perspective and from international maritime feeds. Halfway through the show, we will open the phone lines. And we can open them early tonight. We ain't got no guests, so we ain't got to wait to open them. We can open them right away. You guys want to call, you all could feel free, because these are some hot topics, and I know some of y'all want in on this. So the number to call will be 326-8255. That's 326-8255. Again, I want to highlight our maritime standouts. I can start no show without these people, because these are people who pick up maritime and put it on top of their shoulders and take it to the world. Yeah? So we got Mr. Leon Flowers, our port controller extraordinaire, the best port controller ever. I don't know if we can ever have another one like him, but he's the one that took the Bahamas port, not only the port department, not only the Prince George Wharf, all the docks and all the family islands where all the mail boats go. He helped the mail boats to move from those wooden old rickety things that they had to steel hulls with ramps and all the rest of that. Mr. Flowers was there, and he was there for them. Sloop sailing pioneer. This is a second Exumian. Hey, boy, we got some Exumians in the house. Sloop sailing pioneer, the legendary Captain Raleigh Gray. If you don't know that name, you shouldn't be a Bahamian. We got our Olympic sailing champs. Now, these are the first gold medals, the only gold medals ever won by Bahamians in the Olympics when it comes to do with a sailing event. All the other medals were won in track and field. We know that, right? But this one was the first one, and for decades, this was the only medal, not only gold medal, until my good friend Frank Rutherford came along many decades later and got a bronze. And that's when we know Bahamians could do it. We on the map, and you know what the Golden Girls did. They come in, blew it away. Then Tony came and she blew hers away. And of course, the Golden Knights came around, and well, we got the two big cheese now. We got Big Stephen Gardner, and Miss Weibo, Shawnee Miller Weibo. They are giants, and we be proud every time we watch them perform. Olympic gold medalists, couple times. That's what we're talking about. We Bahamians, way easy. Give us a chance and we go on with it. Of course, next month is the 10th of May anniversary of the sinking of the Flamingo and the actual bombing of the Flamingo by military might, by Russian makes that the Cubans had. They used those warplanes to come and sink one of our patrol boats that wasn't doing nothing to them. All we was doing is our job. And we lost the lives of 4 men on the scene, and eventually 4 died after that. And then, of course, we still got 11 left of us who lives, and we need to respect, appreciate, we need to show them, they need to feel it from us, feel the love, and we need to get some compensation to these people. We need to put some money in there, some money where they ain't got to worry about living for the rest of their life, because they should have gotten it years ago, retired on it, and they should just be chilling. Boy, because what they going through, this country never seen, and this country probably will never ever see again, because no other country in the Caribbean experience an attack by a military force in peacetime while they are out there doing their job. That never happened before. So we start off with, of course, Senior Commander Amos Roll, who was probably the greatest captain the Defense Force would have ever had. One of the most respected officers the Defense Force would have ever had. And I can tell you, his crew loved him. Following him, of course, let's go with the 4 men that actually got killed on impact. Fenric Stirrup, and we said from that Coral Harbor roundabout, we're going to name a road behind these guys. Fenric Stirrup, Austin Smith, David Tucker, and Edward Williams. 4 names that are going to be etched as the greatest heroes this country ever had because of what they had to go through. They had a fighting chance. Nobody never trained them to fight against no MiGs, and nobody in the Defense Force today know how to fight against no Cuban MiGs flying around trying to destroy, because you wouldn't have a chance. Okay? Years later, another 4 died, of course. Wilfred Sands, we call him Cool Breeze, Oscar Dusty Miller, Leopold Kirby, and of course the Fuhrer himself, Mr. Amos Roll. They would have passed on eventually in that order. And the 11 that still stand among us, of course, Anthony Allens. Anthony Allens is not doing well in health, but he's still with us. And please, if you ever come across him, just hug him. You know, just tell him thank you for what you guys went through, man. We didn't treat you right, but, you know, thank you for still being here with us. Peterson James, the great Peterson James. Gregory Curry. Denzel Clark. Should I say the great Denzel Clark? Household name. Hit more home runs than most. Trevor Sands. T. Sands. John Wallace. Whitfield Neely. Well, we know His Excellency. Whitfield Neely. The only one of the whole 19 of those crew that we could ever refer to as His Excellency. Of course, he was the second foreign captain. Captain Allens would have been the first. Whitfield Neely would have been the second. Because even the famous Amos Roll was not a foreign captain. He was a three-ring commander. Willard Sanders, the great cook. Anthony A.K. Russell, the great pool shooter. Eugene Thompson, the greatest man to deal with all of those lawnmowers and small motors. Extraordinary engineer. And of course, Cladwell Farrington went back home to Hatchet Bay, Lutra. Cladwell is the one that wrote the book. And if you haven't read that book yet, please, you need to get to that book. You need to read that book because it gives us a good description on how things develop leading into that fatal incident of the Flamingo, eh? So, what's in the news from a global perspective? I basically came across one or two things that I thought was worth mentioning before we really move on to our maritime show. Those things are the headscarf ruling in Iran. Some of you would have followed the women in Tehran. Tehran is the capital of Iran. A lot of women were walking around with no headscarf, right? And the hijab was not being worn. What Iran decided to do was, look, y'all getting too brazen. Y'all know y'all Muslims. Y'all gotta hide. Y'all supposed to be hiding y'all bodies. They're supposed to be covered from toe to toe, toe to head, or whatever you call it. So we gonna make a law now where you will officially be prosecuted if you're not wearing your hijab and your headscarves. And I think we'll see how that pan out, because some women are still not wearing them because they don't feel like they need to wear them, and you know they just want to get modern. Them days they saying it's behind us, and boy, but this could be interesting how that pan out, because Muslim women are required to keep their bodies covered, even when they're outside of those Muslim countries. You see them in London and in Europe, and they got sometimes you can only see their eyes, and the only reason you can see their eyes is because they need to see. Otherwise, their eyes would have been covered. That's just how they roll. I mean, we don't grow up in them kind of areas, but that's how Muslim women are required to be. You remember the Afghanistan's, when America moved out of Afghanistan, the Taliban took over. They almost didn't allow them to get out of the airport. Taliban was so excited to take that back over. So for about 19, 20 years, the girls in Afghanistan were able to go to school. The girls in Afghanistan were able to walk the streets without wearing headgear and these cloth all over them and all of that. So they were like living like Westerners. And then when that 20 plus years was up, and the US moved out, the Taliban took over. Now these girls can't even go to school. All right? They have to sneak education, because only boys supposed to be educated in those Muslim countries, right? Unfortunately, that's just the way it is. I mean, we wouldn't understand that because we didn't grow up like that, but that's just the way it is. So women live like Westerners while the Taliban was powerless. Now the Taliban is back, and we are now seeing how so much of them are suffering. Again, in the news is the bottleneck that has been developed by the port of Dover. Where's Dover? Dover is just to the southeast of the United Kingdom, or I'll say England, right? Dover is the spot where people leave to catch the Ro-Ro ferry, where they drive the car on, and then the ram comes up, and then the ferry takes them from England to France, to Calais, France. And this is a big deal because they get thousands of movement every day. They got ferry on top of ferry that does that English Channel crossing. It's not very far, but it's a very busy channel. And it's a very busy passage because so many people moving between England and France on a daily basis, right? So those huge numbers of people wanting to travel post-COVID, because since COVID now, a lot of them just want to go and let the hair out, just like us. After COVID, all us trying to get out and party and get back in the States and move around because we feel like we was locked in for a while. Same thing in England. So they're trying to now, Easter break is coming up for the school children and a lot of adults so happy to go because COVID had them locked down. So the crowds are much thicker at Dover. You know what added to the madness? The fact that Brexit came about during COVID. And when Brexit came about, remember now, when Brexit came about, it wasn't much people moving around because it was COVID going on. But now that COVID basically behind the Europeans, well, I mean, they still have COVID, but just like us. But it kind of behind us as far as all the measures we taken to stave off with traveling and all that. So they free now and they traveling just like us. And so because of Brexit, the British people cannot freely go to those European countries because they're no longer part of the EU. They decided they want to get out. So they got to bring a passport. They ain't used to this. British people are not used because when the European Union, before Brexit, they were able to just move around Europe freely. They drive from country to country, no border check and no that, but they can't do that no more because they're no longer part of the EU and they just like a third party coming to Europe now. And I mean, they cause it, they say they want Brexit, they get Brexit. Now they got this big bottleneck at Dover. And I mean, they making noise, some 18 hours, some 24 hours, and they still ain't get their car on board the ferry to move them across as yet. The train ride. One more thing happened in addition to Brexit. First of all, they had big crowds, right? So they had like over 400 buses and over 5,000 cars on a daily basis trying to get across the channel. One way. And then the weather got bad. You know, when the weather bad in England ain't like the weather bad in Nassau or in the Bahamas or Florida. It's cold, sticky, it's snowing, but that delays things because of how sloppy it is being, right? And how cold it is being. So that added to the whole chaos. So the people who were going by train, obviously if you didn't need to carry your car, then you could go by train because they got a train that goes underneath the English Channel. You believe that? The train goes under the English Channel, which is thousands of feet deep, and then it comes up on the other side. It's not Calais. I go to the next port, just past Calais. I can't remember the name. I'm getting too old. But anyway, that's what's going on now, and that is a maritime blockade that is really affecting Europe. So let's open the lines. As I said, the number to call is 326-8255. We will move on these topics, but the number to call is 326-8255. But just before I get to that maritime thing, I got another feed that came in the local press. It's a small documentary piece, I think, to the editor by Mr. Paul Thompson Sr. Now, most of us would know Paul Thompson used to be the assistant commissioner of police for many years when he retired. And he's now well into his 90s. He still runs his security company, and this man is an amazing man. And I can tell you, I read that article, and I was so impressed with the way Paul, at his age, still thinks. I mean, I want to call him a military man. He was a big police, but I think he's more like a military man, because when I hear him on the talk shows and over the years, you know, it's nothing but respect for Mr. Paul Thompson Sr., yeah? And Mr. Paul Thompson was really talking about the military option for Haiti. You know, a couple of people asked me, you know, you think they send the defense force back to Haiti to do peacekeeping? I say, boy, I hope they do. I wish they do. I mean, they need to. But not the defense force by itself. It's a peacekeeping force from the entire United Nations. And of course, like everything else, when United Nations decide they can do peacekeeping, they go with the regional countries. They want everybody to be a part of it. This is something that the Bahamas could be a part of without worrying about us and an enemy, because there's no real enemy. The enemy is the situation in Haiti. And Haiti is our sister country. The Haitian people are our brothers and sisters. And I can tell you, if it happened to our country, we certainly would want some people come to assist us in forming order in the country. Because right now it's a big chaos, right? Al Jazeera would tell us, you know, they have cameras and they're going into these things that the poverty is at its worst in Haiti. Children that are suffering, rodents all over the place, litter and garbage all over the place, protests on the streets accompanied by the burning of tires, a police service that is overwhelmed, and a state of complete disorder. And I'm reading from what Mr. Thompson had to say. What I saw, or what he saw, or what Al Jazeera said he saw, was not only very sad and frightening. Haiti, in particular Port-au-Prince, is apparently the most unsafe place in the world to be at right now. Add cholera, it's a disease, to the present situation. So it is obvious why Haitians are leaving their country, because it is in turmoil. I mentioned in the show last week that Libya was in turmoil after Gaddafi was taken out. Haiti is probably worse right now because there's no law. Everybody, this battle of the fittest, you know, you got to fight for survival, struggle. This is real survival, people. So Mr. Thompson goes on to say the business of smugglers is thriving. The Dominican Republic has stationed troops on its border and is building a wall to keep Haitians out of the country during this crisis. There are invasions by Haitian nationals trying to get into the U.S. through Colombia and Mexico. Many of those arriving here are trying to get to the U.S. They really ain't trying to stop in the Bahamas, but of course, if we give them opportunities, you can't blame them if they stay, We got to make it difficult with opportunities, otherwise we become overwhelmed. And you know, we don't have that show, we need to have that right now again. Immediate action is necessary to save Haiti and its people. It must come from the United Nations and the Organization of American States and the CARICOM nations. So a combination of all, we did it before in Haiti. We had peacekeepers go there from the Defense Force, joined in with people from Belize and Jamaica and Barbados and Trinidad and all over. Everybody had a part to play. And eventually, order was reinstated in Haiti. So right now, our brothers and sisters need help. They need that country. We can't just let it go on like that forever. We need to intervene. And I am 100% with Mr. Thompson when he says that the only solution really is peacekeeping. Put a peacekeeping force there to stem, to neutralize everything, and then, of course, you can go ahead and get into to getting into elections and all the rest of that. So he said, as he said, the only solution is military occupation by an international force with enough resources to overwhelm, deplete, and eradicate the gangs. Occupy Haiti until safety, security, and peace can be restored, after which democratic elections are to be held. So the occupation by the international force could be reduced in numbers until safety and security is completely restored. International troops occupied Germany and Japan, and they had to. Remember when they split Berlin in half and they put the big Berlin Wall in place, and half was the American, the western side, and the eastern side was for Russia. And that went on until that wall just came down. I was there about, it must have been about 10 years ago, 8 to 10 years ago. And you can the wall is still there. It's a big tourist attraction. But, you know, that's now. So the USA invaded Grenada to remove the Cuban invaders and remain there for a while until peace, safety, and security were restored. And when the U.S. did that, they carried some CARICOM peace troops with them as well. It wasn't only the U.S. I think some people came in from Trinidad and Jamaica and Barbados, because the Bahamas really had no military might back then in places yet. And we didn't want to send our police, I don't think. So Haiti needs the same treatment, eh? We're talking maritime people. You are listening to Maritime Matters. At this point, we move to our first break. And when we return, we're going to dig deep into our domestic maritime matters. So please, stay tuned.
At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart. At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection.
Sitting in the morning sun.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. We are live on Maritime Matters. Now we're going to go into our domestic maritime matters in detail. But before we do so, I just want to answer this phone call and see what my good friends out there have to say to us tonight. Caller, you're live on Maritime Matters. Good evening to you. Caller, you there? Okay, we probably hold out too long. You could call back if you feel like. Our numbers again, 326-8255. Feel free to call back. So we start off with the Carnival Flag's 8th ship in 2 years under the Bahamas Maritime Authority. We talk about Carnival doing a lot of things in the Bahamas now. You know, they're building that port. And they have a lot of ships. Carnival have more ships than any other cruise line. So they agreed to flag, when they say flag a ship, what every ship out there needs a country that they need to carry the flag of that country to say these are the people that we operate under. Because if you don't have a country to register, you don't have to be an IMO country if you don't catch no hell. Because IMO has 175 states or countries, and you can go to any one of those countries, no matter what nationality you are, once you got a ship, and register your ship under that country. And that's what they call flagging your ship, because every country have a flag. So if you choose to flag with Jamaica, that means the Jamaican government is responsible for the safety and prevention pollution on your ship. Safety, security, and prevention pollution. Those are the things that IMO is responsible for. Because remember, ships travel in international waters. These are only international ships that the IMO registers. Your own law domestically is supposed to register ships that are just traveling in your waters. That's where the Port Department comes in. That's the difference between the Bahamas Maritime Authority registering ship and the Port Department registering ships. The Port Department cannot register a ship to trade between the Bahamas and another country. The Port Department can only register a ship to trade within the waters of the Bahamas. The Bahamas Maritime Authority registers ships that want to do international trade between countries. So Carnival decide they're gonna give us some ships. They're gonna flag some ships, and because, like I said earlier, when they flag a ship with a country, that country is paid some annual fees, Because you ain't gonna let them carry your flag, and if they get in trouble, they make giving you a bad name. So they carry your flag, they gotta pay to be on your register, because you gotta manage your register, and you gotta keep a good system going as far as safety, checking ships to make sure they maintain the safety and pollution prevention standards for the world required by the IMO, based on all the IMO regulations. Anyway, we need to go too deep into that. But those 8 ships were not with the Bahamas flag, not even the Bahamas flag. So according to Carnival, the Venezia was registered by the BMA last week. They had the ceremony in Cadiz, Spain, where the Bahamian flag was replaced another flag, or Venezia may be a brand new ship. I even ain't sure, but I don't think Spain built ships, so this one got to be replacing another flag and putting the Bahamas flag there and raising it to say Venezia is now a Bahamian ship. And when that ship becomes a Bahamian ship, that means all the laws of our country applies once you go on board that ship. So if the cook on that ship decides he gonna starve the mate because he don't like how the mate talking down them, that criminal act comes under the laws of the Bahamas. And when that case is going to be tried, they can only try that based on Bahamian law, no matter where it is in the world. They can't apply other law because they try it to other parts of the world. But in many cases, you see Bahamian law is flying around because Bahamian lawyers know our law better than everybody else, and they represent some of these people and all the rest of that, right? So it's big business. So they call, since the Venezia is the last one, that make number 8, they call it a milestone, right? Because to have 8 big cruise ships flag under your administration, that's a big thing. And it goes on to say the BMA is among the most respected administrations in international shipping, and we value the level of cooperation and professionalism. This is what Carnival saying. But of course, BMA is very good when it comes to, particularly with cruise. We're number 1 in the world with the amount of cruise ships under our flag. No country in the world has more cruise ships carrying their flag than the Bahamas. So we battle there when it comes to cruise ships and managing, ensuring that situations are in place to manage those ships. So in Spain, we had the Venezia turn over to the Bahamas. So she's going to be cruising New York and all the rest of that. They got a wide range of places to Venezia. We hope they come to the Bahamas sooner or later, so we can see that, okay, that was the last one that we put a flag on, and that's our ship, right? It was built in 2019, so they're brand new ship, right? Up to 5,000 passengers and 1,300 crew. So this is a big ship. They say, that's for 5,000 passengers to be on one ship. And back in the day when I was around, that was not heard of, right? 3,000 was a lot. So Carnival began reflagging ships through the BMA in 2021. So now it's 2023, and this number 8, and the IMA to stop. We're looking for more, Mr. Carnival. Please bring all the ships to our flag. We don't mind, because you can remember now, our flag is not the only flag in the world, but I think because Carnival has so much interest, and the only country Disney flags all of our ships with is the Bahamas. Because Disney's right there. They got base in the Bahamas, and Disney loves us, and we love them, and so, the Bahamas is their flag, and that's the bottom line. So there goes Carnival now, flagging with the Bahamas, and building up our flag, because those cruise ships, especially if they built in 2021, they're almost brand new. They ain't gonna cause you no problems. And ships are new, you ain't gonna have no problems out of them. So let's go back to the RCI Beach Club situation, right? We have some businesses downtown expressing concerns over RCI building their operation on Paradise Island near a lighthouse. As far as they're concerned, just like how some other entities, I assume, concerned, that's going to take a little bit of bread from them. But there is concerns like the business will decline, right? If they take in thousands of their people cross to the beach club. They invested $110 million in the beach club, but they figure, boy, that will affect our business. Yes, because if couple hundred people or 1,000, 2,000 or 3,000 people go over there in one day, that's a couple thousand people didn't come and ask. But that ain't necessarily the case, people. Because, you know, a lot of these cruise ships come in Nassau Harbor and they are repeat cruisers. They've been here many times before. So they say, boy, Nassau, I ain't again at them old downtown stores and I ain't buying no jewelry. And I didn't do the tours, the little tour to this place, the little tour to that place. I didn't swim with the pigs. I ain't into that right now, man. I mean, I can stay on the ship. But now, if they have a second option, which is just hop on the ferry and go right there across on Paradise Island where you ain't gonna worry about no harassment. You just go and you have your drinks and you go on the beach and you rent your little beach chair or whatever and you chill out. Then that's an option that they never had before. The fact that the port itself is turning around and making amphitheaters and junketing museums and green spaces and they making it comfortable for the people to come off the ship. That's what the Nassau Cruise Port is doing right now as they reconstruct. So I hear the Bay Street merchant complaining about that. Wouldn't that take away from them coming to your store? I don't think so, because I can guarantee you, if they want to come to your store, ain't nothing to stop them. They could do that. And then they would go wherever else they want to go. So I don't quite agree with this perception that the RCI project will take away from what was happening before. Because I think a lot of those people stay on the ships because they don't have anything like the RCI. And guess what? When they go to that beach club, they can be spending money. We got waiters, we got cleaners, we got probably entertainment, live entertainment with a band. Jet ski fellas could get people to do jet ski rides on the beach, non-motorized equipment. Now, one thing we don't want is we don't want RCI or Royal Caribbean Cruise Line or whoever responsible to think that this could be like their private island where they own jet skis, they own parasail, they own non-motorized equipment. No, you're not going to own none of them around here. As a matter of fact, you need to stop owning them on your own key because we got Bahamians who could own those things for as much people as you want to bring. So that's one thing I think we need to make sure ain't happening up in here. And we also need to go back and ensure that it ain't happening on them private islands either. Because they're keeping Bahamians out of making money. I don't have no problem with you coming in and doing what you... But don't try to stamp us out altogether. Give us some. Let us get us. There are some areas in government policy where outsiders should not venture into. That's transportation, that's security, and a lot of other things that affect maritime that these cruise lines or these external entities shouldn't try to be regulating or owning in the Bahamas. Let the Bahamians deal with that. That's my view on that, and I stick into that. So there goes Mr. Mike Morrow, who's the CEO of the Nassau Cruise Port. You know, he's saying that RCI's project can coexist with existing products, particularly for guests who do not have sufficient experiences and adventures. Look, I don't agree all the time with Brother Mike Morrow, but I must say, Mr. Morrow, you and I are on the same page with this one. I think it can coexist. We can get into the little details of whether they have rights to knock Toby on the side or don't have rights to knock Toby. So that's a different topic. But as far as I'm concerned, if everything, all the dotted dots, or the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed, and everything is cool, then yeah, man, bring that, and bring all the rest you all got. Because some people seem to think when these things come in the Bahamas, they taken away from Bahamians doing things. No, Bahamians still doing their thing. These just added stuff. These just added, and we won them. We're talking maritime, people. You're listening to Maritime Matters, and again, phone number to call is 326-8255. That's 326-8255. So we go on to the Paradise Island situation that, we're talking about the perspective from the Bahamian downtown businessman, the perspective from Mr. Mora, and of course RCI wants to do what they do. They want to spend some $200 million and bringing that play, 100 and something, 110 million, I don't know. But it's a lot of money they want to spend to pull that together and make that a comfortable visit for their passengers. But they can't wake it. Bahamians got to wake it. It ain't like they're on their ship offering this thing. No, Bahamians got to wake it. Bahamians got to make money transporting the people. Bahamians got to make money with the water sport stuff. Bahamians got to make money with the music. Come on, man. Bahamians can make some money out of this. So, the Chief Justice, we talking about the Toby Smith situation, where Toby is saying that he have new evidence since the last ruling. New evidence to show that he really is the holder of this Crown land lease. Because back in February, the middle of February 16 actually, it was the Chief Justice ruled that Mr. Smith had no binding lease over the combined 5 Crown land acres he needed for his project. So they said he applied for the 5 acres, but the lease was never legitimized. He never actually got a copy of a signed lease from the government, right? The then minister responsible, who was the Prime Minister at the time, Dr. Hubert Minnis, did not execute the document by signing it. So he's saying he got an unsigned document. Dr. Minnis didn't sign it. So that's not a binding lease. So Brother Smith is appealing now on 9 grounds. One of them being that the Court of Appeals permission to introduce fresh evidence, not placed before the Supreme Court trial now, which he contends is critical to his argument that he possessed a valid binding Crown land lease for 2 parcels, one of 3 acres in size and the other of 2 acres in size. So 5 acres in total. And what Mr. Smith is saying now is, look, I didn't have this when the Supreme Court trial was going on. But since it's gone to the appeal court, this is one of the grounds that I have it now. I could prove it now. I want to present this, because really what the appeals court should be doing. And I ain't no lawyer, and I ain't trying to pretend to be no lawyer, right? So I could get this wrong, but this is what I know, right? The appeals court basically look over the trial that already happened. They ain't trying to introduce nothing new. They ain't calling you to stand and asking you no question. They're only looking to see if the decision made based on all of the submittals was the correct one. So what Mr. Smith is appealing for is for them to allow him to introduce some stuff that was stashed away somewhere that he couldn't find, that he eventually came across, and he want to now present that to strengthen his case. Eh? So will the appeals court allow it? He have to be able to persuade them to allow it, right? That he has uncovered some pretty compelling, and they say pretty compelling, new evidence to merit being considered during his appeal. So what he's in his appeal now, he want to introduce some stuff that wasn't introduced to the court when the decision was made, and he want that to be taken into consideration by the appeals court. He argued that Chief Justice failed to consider that the government's only explanation and admitted motivation to breach the subject agreement to enter a lease with him was that it had procured a bigger deal for over $100 million as opposed to the appellant's $3 million. So what Mr. Smith is saying is, my little operation would have cost $3 million. right? Now, when I was putting that on the table and getting a lease organized for that, this $100 million thing didn't exist. Nobody knew anything about that. But now that RCI view that as a good opportunity for them and all the rest of that, the government is kind of looking at that with favor because it's much bigger and more money involved, which could be true. But is it fair? I don't know. We have to see how this one pan out, people. But that is the situation as far as that is concerned. So, our cruise port, I can carry on since I'm going to call. I'll say again, ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Maritime Matters. We are discussing maritime issues in the Bahamas. And the number to call if you want to tap into this conversation is 326-8255. That's 326-8255. And we'll be happy to hear you out. The cruise port targets $3 million in annual gain from refinancing what exists as the loan for $140+ million. Okay, it's $138 million, I see. So Nassau Cruise Port will save close to $3 million a year from refinancing the existing $138 million bond debt that kickstarted its redevelopment, with its top executive yesterday saying we're so much more than just a cruise port. And that's Mike Moore. And he's right. I mean, compared to what we had there, this is big time operation. Mind you, it costs over $100 million, in this case $138 million. So if the port costs $138, I think they cost more than that, but that's what they borrowed. He did over $300 million in transformation. That's what I thought. Yeah, that was only what they borrowed, but they came up with some money initially. So it's a $300 million in total transformation that is scheduled to be completed by the end of next month, May 2023. And it will enhance. You'll have a Junkanoo Museum. They're going to have other amenities like an amphitheater. They're going to have a lot of bars and restaurants. And they just give the keys to those Bahamian, those local shop owners and whatnot who want to rent shop space. And so they can have all that going on. So, you know, I think it's going to be an enhanced port. Mind you, it could carry more ships. But from the time I was in the port in the 90s, early mid-90s, we were turning away ships from Prince George Wharf. You see, back in the day when Mr. Flowers was around, the ships were very much smaller. The ships today are like, I guess you could say, in some cases, 10 times the size of those cruise ships that used to come with the Dolphin and those small ships. They only carry like 500-600 passengers. Now they got ships carrying what, 6,000 and 7,000 passengers. And we're gonna do a show on cruise ship, and I can tell you that cruise ships are carrying a lot of people. They're carrying a lot of size. They're being built every year, and ain't no stopping it. And cruise is back up and going and on the market, right? But in Mr. Flowers' days with those small cruise ships, when they first extended the dock, they used to have, I remember the record I think was 13 cruise ships all one day. 13 cruise ships. I knew they were small compared to what they have now. You could put like 3 of them on one dock, 4 of them on a longer dock, 2 on a dock. So they were like behind the next, one behind the next. And the good thing about it is no matter how much of them coming, the port, Mr. Flowers found room to put them. But these days, I mean, one ship take up one dock. You have the outer pier where you could probably put 2 ships. But these ships are so huge that it's so hard to put 2 of them on one dock as it was. So they were able to rearrange the port to the extent where 2 ships, 2 additional ships, I think we could carry 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We could carry 6 large ships. Well, large and maybe one medium, because you couldn't put two large on the repair back then, but you could still get two ships on the repair, right? But now you can readily get two large ships out there, and we made space on the inside pier for two ships as well. So we can now have, instead of 6, I think we can have 8, something to that effect, or it was 5 and 7. I don't know. I can't remember all the details. I'm getting a little up in age now, but because of that situation, more people could now hold in Nassau Harbor, right? Because you have more ships, and you have bigger ships with more capacity. So when they had a 28,000 in one day the other day, that was no secret. I mean, it wasn't no unexpected occurrence. Once you make space for more, and even now, we will find that they're turning away cruise ships sometimes, because you still only can hold a handful. You know how much cruise ships they have making? I think they have 4 and 5 cruise ships making every year. And the Caribbean is a hot spot, and the Bahamas is the hottest spot in the Caribbean, right? Outside of Port Everglades in Miami, you know, the ports have more cruise ships than Nassau. And I even say Nassau, Freeport, and the rest islands. I say Nassau. So Nassau is big deal. Nassau is big business. Now, you may or may not have seen that recently, making its rounds on social media, was the 5 waste ports. I say waste in the world for cruise ships. And you wouldn't believe that Nassau clocks in as number 3 waste. With all this extravagant development, with all of these ships trying to crowd us on a day-to-day basis, we're supposed to be the waste. Only 2 ports supposed to be wasting us. And guess what? One of them is Freeport. Boy, you think we're doing good? We're shooting bad. Mind you, that could be a bit obscure. Because at the end of the day, how you gonna have the waste, the 3rd waste cruise port, but yet probably the busiest visiting port in the world? That means they was coming here anyhow, because if it's that bad and they still coming here, they was coming here anyhow. So if you made arrangement for 10 of them to come in, sometimes you'll have 10 of them in one day. So we gonna have to turn away some people. It ain't like every time a cruise ship request to come, we could be able to facilitate them. No, because we keep a schedule, and when you get the docks full, it don't make no sense promising a ship you could bring them in if you ain't got more space. Those ships are huge. So that's what the deal is on them. So Global Port Holdings knew exactly what they were doing. They knew exactly what they were doing when they said, we want to purchase the port of Nassau. We could pump a couple $100 million in it and make it more attractive. Who are you making it more attractive for? Those ships was coming in no matter what you do. So ain't nobody gonna convince me that because you have a good facade, a good facelift, you pump a lot of money into Nassau Harbor, that causing more ships to come in. That's not true. So if the government had kept that port and expanded that themselves, more ships would have been coming here, more people would have been coming here. It ain't nothing to do with what Global Port Holdings spending money on. That's foolishness. Because the ships coming here no matter what. Why are they coming here? You see how close we is to the 2 largest cruise ship ports in the world? Port of Miami and Port Everglades, the 2 largest cruise ports in the world where cruise ships home port. What home port is? Home port means these ships are provisioning themselves and taking on passengers. Now, if you want to join a cruise, you notice you don't join at Nassau, right? We in Nassau. The ship coming to Nassau. You request to join at Nassau, see what happen. That ain't gonna happen. Now, why that ain't gonna happen in Nassau? I can tell you why. Because we don't have the provision at Nassau Harbor or at the Nassau Cruise Port for the transition and joining a ship. We have the provisions for ships to let people off, go downtown, come back, take them back on. So we have the provision for passenger movements. But we don't have the provisions for home porting. Because when that ship is home porting, I could do a whole show on just home porting a ship, a cruise ship. They changing well, first of all, they got to get the food for the trip, because they just come off another trip and most of the food done gone. They got to change over all the linens, all the dirty linens come off, and a whole fresh new set of linens go on. And all of this got to happen under what they call ISPS, under certain type of security, because when your supplies are coming to that ship, you got to make sure a handgun in those supplies. You got to make sure a grenade in those supplies, because you don't want nothing getting on that ship that a terrorist could arrange to get on that ship to affect a cruise ship. You don't want that. So what they do in Florida, I can tell you, I worked with the Coast Guard for 6 months doing this type of thing. They will put the supplies, all the food, they go in a warehouse and they sit there, and when that ship come in, they got the sniffer dogs in there going through them stuff. They package every suitcase, they putting through the scanner, and anything they ain't sure about, just like when you're walking through the airport, they do the same thing with those cruise ships. They don't have no provision. Mind you, we had a little provision at Prince George Wharf where the defense force would deal with, because you got some people who still got to join the cruise ship. Because if you were supposed to join your cruise ship in Miami or Port Everglades, and there's a rainstorm in London and you and your family come in, but your flight delays, so by the time you all reach your ship, the ship left because your flight was cancelled. What they can do with you? Your cruise is a 10-day cruise. They fly you to the next port where the cruise ship going, and in most cases, in these cases, it could be Nassau. And when you come in with you, your family, and all the luggage you all have, they're not going to allow you and your family luggage to just go in that ship, because that luggage was away from you. Terrorists could get some stuff in there. And all this is ISPS. Like I tell you, we could do a couple shows on ISPS, but I don't like to get too bogged down in ISPS because that's my portfolio. All right? So, Global Port Holdings, as I was saying, is quite technically a port facility for visiting ships, not for home porting. And because that is located on the doorfront of the two largest home porting facilities in the world, most of those ships, if they going to the Eastern Caribbean or they need a port where people is, right? And Nassau is known as one of the most popular ports in the world, because they do a lot of things in Nassau. You know, I don't want you all to think because they say Nassau is number 3, but Cozumel is in between Nassau and Freeport. They say Nassau is number 3. There's something so bad about Nassau. Yeah, we have our share of crime and this and that, but how much of those cruise ship tourists get caught up in crime? How much of those cruise ship tourists just get robbed, right? I say you don't have isolated cases, but what I'm saying is this port is not known for cruise ship passengers getting robbed. This port is not known for cruise ship passengers getting in a crossfire. So, you know, we ain't need to worry about all of that. So, with all the new stuff going on, we could be good. But what Nassau Cruise Port is doing, it's like I say, they saving some of that money that they would be spending on interest. So they now chasing a 6% interest as opposed to the existing 8% rate. And based on 138 million in debt, being refinanced, calculations show an interest payment will fall from 11 million to 8.2 million, from 11.04 million to 8.28 million, generating $2.76 million in savings every year. And that's big deal. That's big deal. If you could save that kind of money every year, go for it. So that's it going on. Goes on to say, in the conversation, I've been party to everything. Looks good for the refinancing, Mr. But that's Mr. Moore. Mr. Moore is obviously the CEO. He's the head honcho for this operation. So they're doing big things as far as trying to get their shareholders to have money saved over a period of time, because the money saved is money in their pocket. And that's what's going with the Nassau Cruise Port right now. Right? They getting ready to open up at the end of next month. They got big things. They're going to be pretty, nice and bouncy. And I encourage improvement. I encourage that improvement. With the added benefit of RCI having their club just across the waterway right there, it will add to all the other excursions that they have by sea. Because they right now they have a whole heap of excursions going every day on these small cruise boats, taking them to Athol Island, taking them to Booze and Cruise, taking them all over in regional, this nearby port area for them to have fun, swim with dolphins, swim with sharks, swim with pigs. I'm sure with the sharks, I think that's in Bimini. But they do a lot of things to cause people to want to come off the ship and get involved in doing stuff. Eh? So that's how we roll. Well, you're listening to Maritime Matters, people. Tonight is a boring night, I guess, because ain't nobody calling. I don't know if anybody listening. I'm sure you out there listening, so feel free. Hit us up, give us a call. No problem there. We're ready to roll. So what else is going on in our news feed? And we had my good friend, Mr. Eric Carey. Mr. Eric Carey from, he used to be the National Trust chief. He's a very intelligent, very qualified man. And Eric is saying, in a nutshell, I saw in the news that it may not be a good idea to have too much of this stuff going on with what RCI is trying to do. Because they have their private keys and Bahamians ain't seem to be getting much out of it. But my thing is we need to develop the Bahamas. This ain't taking away, this ain't stopping Bahamians from doing nothing. You could continue doing whatever you want to. So Eric, you and I see eye to eye on most things. But this one, sure, we wanna look at that in that perspective. And then we got Sharp Rock. Sharp Rock is the Carnival cruise site in Grand Bahama. We have some concerns. Some entities out of Grand Bahama is saying that Sharp Rock is not a good idea. And why isn't Sharp Rock a good idea? Because Sharp Rock, first of all, is in the middle of nowhere, and it's going to be taking most of the carnival stops in Freeport Harbor away, because if they could have their own little port where they have their own little money operation going on and they have full control, they probably wouldn't be inclined to go to Freeport Harbor no more. And in Freeport Harbor, you got a lot of taxi drivers and all the straw vendors and that type of thing, making money off Carnival ships. I think Carnival do more calls to Freeport than any other ship, eh? I think. I don't have any facts on that. But because we have the situation where Carnival is building their own port, some of the entities in Freeport feel as though this port that they're building is going to be a little problem, because it's going to take some of the actual financing out of Freeport Harbor. But again, I always say they have other ships that will be going to Freeport Harbor, and when Freeport Harbor is not going to be making the activities that they were making around Carnival coming there, Sharp Rock can have an entire development develop around that port, even outside the extremities of where Carnival have full control. There's a lot that can be done. I mean, Garden of the Groves ain't so far from there, eh? And then the BNT, the park just up the road on to the east of that, where they got all those tours going on all the time. That's going to be able to generate a lot of interest. You could have people renting cars to passengers who just want to drive to McLeanstown, and in some cases they may decide they can do tours to Sweden Ski. So a lot could be deciphered from what's going on here. You got to pass High Rock. you got a lot of activities that could be garnered in High Rock area, since they now know that they can have these thousands of people come to this port. And in my opinion, I think it'll be every single day. And they say they have enough space for 2 cruise ships, 2 of their largest cruise ships. So there are times when they're gonna have 2 ships in there at one time. So instead of 5,000, it'll be 10,000 people. Now you can tell me you can't find a way to generate some excitement for 10,000 people who you even ain't gotta go out there and market for. These people just coming to you because Carnival already have them. Come on, man. We got to look at what we could do to get something out of the deal. That's what we got to look at. Okay. So we got another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 minutes to cover what's left. Ain't that much left, but we got some stuff left. So at this point, I'll take a second break. And once that is true, we will move on with the rest of our agenda. You're listening to Maritime Matters. Your host, Captain Glenn Bain. And again, the numbers to call, or the number to call if you want to enter this conversation, at 326-8255. Thank you so much.
At Bahamas Maritime Connection Limited, we offer first-class maritime security services throughout the Bahamas and the wider Caribbean. As experts in maritime security, we specialize in production of ISPS assessments and plans, verification audits, certified familiarization training, and port security consultancy, just to name a few. Our services also include provision of a security force to maintain all required ISPS facility security compliance. For all your maritime security needs, visit us today in Nassau at our East Street South location or in Freeport in the Kipling Building. Call us at 392-3515 or follow us on all social media platforms. Bahamas Maritime Connection, your leader in maritime security. Let's help you make the connection. At One-on-One Pharmacy, our friendly staff is ready to serve you. Visit us today for all your prescription and over-the-counter needs at our East Street South or Charles Saunders Highway locations. We're open Monday through Saturday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. and from 9 to 4 on Sundays. In a rush? Send your refill scripts online at oneononepharmacy.com or ask about our convenient pickup service. One-on-One Pharmacy, providing personal health care with people at heart.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. Welcome back to Maritime Matters. We got one caller on the line. Caller, I'm coming to you right now. Caller, you live on Maritime Matters. Hello.
Oh, good night.
Good night, sir.
I'm wondering, right? They say you're going to be opening the port next month.
No, the end of May, the end of next month, sir. According to the newspaper,
okay.
Yeah.
Would the Bahamians be allowed to go out there on that port, like how the tourists coming off is going? Apparently, I worked on that port when Balfour PD was here.
Right.
And a couple of times I went out there to the hair braiders to get my hair planned.
Right.
And I had all the hell in the world to get through security for the girls them to come to get me to get my hair braided. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So just wondering if we Bahamians would be allowed to go out there. I mean, explore and see what it's like or what have you, or that's for the cruise ship passengers.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember the welcome center that we had before they converted it now to what it's going to be. The welcome center. Hello. Oh shit. Yeah, I lost that call. I don't know what happened, but I was trying to get him to come in a little more clear, and I must have pressed the wrong button. Call, I apologize for that. But you can feel free, please, to call back, and I'll be happy. But I'll go ahead and answer your question. I was saying to you that the welcome center that we had, Bahamians were free to come into the welcome center, but the northern section where there's a place where only passengers that are going to the ships, and they must actually show the ship pass along with an ID, to get to the docks where the ships are, because the ships are required to be protected by the port facility, and that's an international requirement now. And I'm sure if you was around back in those days with Balfour Beatty, you remember that all the taxi drivers used to drive straight up to the ships. Everybody, you could have just drive your car straight out on the port, but in 2004, July 1st, all of that changed. And the world were required to adopt, anywhere where international ships would come, the world was required to adopt what they call ISPS, or International Ship and Port Facility Security. It's designed to protect ships sailing from port to port to port. So any port they go to is supposed to be international. And they're saying that the security at the port facility should be consistently equal with that of a ship. So they have to do a lot of things, put a lot of things in place. Like I said, that'll be a whole show, just trying to explain what that is all about as far as ISPS is concerned. But what I do know is they will have some public areas. I think the amphitheater, the Junkanoo museum, because you can imagine we have a lot of people coming into the hotels, and if they get the opportunity, they probably want to come down and have a look at these things. So I don't think the entire port area, but there will be an area that is restricted. You wouldn't be able to walk out there and walk straight to a ship. You can walk around in certain areas, but there will be areas where screening is required, and you will have to either be a passenger, a crew, or a dock worker to get beyond those areas. And that's the way it is worldwide. That's not a thing only for the Nassau Cruise Port. That's everywhere in the world. Caller, you're live on Maritime Matters.
Well,
hello.
Yeah, I was cut off a little while ago.
Yes, I did that inadvertently. I was trying to turn the volume up and I must press a button that I shouldn't have pressed.
All right, I understand exactly what you say. I know it's protocol for safety and protection, right?
For security, yes.
Understandable, no problem with that. But like you say, there'll be a welcome area where people, the Bahamians can go so far, and that's it. I don't have no problem with that, like how I say, back when it was, a couple of years when they reconstructed it, the British was, you had to go through security, and, like I said, I told them, hey, I built this port,
That's right.
Was part of the budget, and but if you got to get my hair braided one day, it was like, hey, you can't go this far. They got to come to you, and I say, I'm not going on a ship. I don't need to go on no boat. I on the land, man.
Yeah. What happens is there are times when they would enforce the ISPS requirements all the way out to the perimeter of the facility, and there are times when they'll relax it.
I understand, yeah, for safety reasons, and, like you say, terrorists and what have you all.
That's correct.
That smuggling, this or that, because I know when those big bound ships used to come, like you say, you could have drive right up onto it, go on board,
right,
or come back off, But I know things have changed, since like 9/11 and all those different stuff going on through the world, with terrorists. So.
Yeah, that's...
It's nice that I look at it just about every day, going over on Paradise Island Bridge, and there's a lot of ships. The other day they had to turn away 2 of them, like you say, when he could hold so much. So,
that's correct.
It's a big plus for us here in the Bahamas. I hope they take care of it.
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah, well, I you was around from Balfour Beatty days, so you know how far we came from those days to now. I mean,
right.
Yeah, and it was free for all. It was free for all back then. Not only the cruise terminal, even the cargo facilities. Anybody could walk into the tropical shipping and Betty K, and you can't walk into them no more. You have to be screened. You have to have a driver's license, and that's the only way it works.
Yes, I understand. Yeah. Okay, well, anyhow. That was nice listening to your show. I enjoy it every Tuesday.
Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate the call, and please do continue to listen.
Have a pleasant night.
And likewise to you. Yeah, that was a... that was a very interesting call and takes us back in time. ISPS, International Ship and Port Security, has really caused the world to do a lot of things to protect ships, and especially where you get passenger ships, because people in the eyes of the IMO or the United Nations is more important than the ship itself. So passengers and crew, they see as you got to make sure, not only the ship is going to be impacted, but those people on board the ships are also not going to be impacted by somebody doing skullduggery and being able to get beyond your screening areas to cause problems. And that's how it goes. But back in the day, when I first went out to the port, everybody could have just freely walk into the port area, do whatever you choose to do. It didn't really matter. And then in 2004, July 1st, all of that changed. And I can tell you that if we don't have it right, if we don't have these measures in place, and something goes wrong, ships returning from the Bahamas to the U.S. will be borne under heavy scrutiny. In most cases, what the U.S. Coast Guard would do is they tell the ship, before you could come in, you got to go on anchor. We got to arrange to get some dogs to come and check through your ship first, because you got bombs, you got drugs, you got all kinds of things going on. So there's an exchange program between the Bahamas and the U.S. when it comes to port facilities. And sometime, I think about 3 or 4 years ago, the Coast Guard came in and they would normally go and check 1 or 2 of our port facilities. And they checked 1 or 2 facilities this particular year, and they were dissatisfied. They saw a lot of deficiencies and non-conformities with the ISPS code, and they expressed that, look, we have a problem. We don't know if ships coming from this port facility to us is not going to have terrorists on board, or terrorist weapons on board, or bombs on board, or they could stage an attack when they get to us. So you don't have anything in place that is required for an international port facility. So you need to, and one thing with the Coast Guard and with inspecting ships, from my experience and all that, once you see something is wrong in one place, you're concerned that it may be wrong in another place. Because consistent measures and procedures should be taken by the authorities to ensure that no place is left behind. Otherwise, they should lose their status. They shouldn't be able to receive international ships no more, and all the rest of that. And that happens by way of what they call a designated authority in this country right now, is the Port Department. And very recently, we're coming into close, very recently, what the Port Department did, what the government did, is they brought in some extra officers from Defense Force to form what they call a compliance unit for ISPS, just to ensure that Bahamian ports are not going to be closed down because 1 or 2 isn't doing things properly. So they kind of focus a little more on that area, and things have really been brought up to a higher standard in recent times, and it continues to keep the foot on the brakes sort of thing, as far as letting ports get out of hand. And with that, I think it's bringing our show to a close. We've reached our 2100 hour. Boy, we had a boring show today. A lot of information. Next week, we are going into international feeds. We're going to really get into some goodness. So, ladies and gentlemen, I reiterate our sponsors. We've heard them twice. Bahamas Maritime Connection, and of course, One-on-One Pharmacy. I'd like to say hello to my good Auntie May again. She know I hail at the end of the show up there in Freeport. She leave Lorraine House and gone by Vernice now, but she is keeping in touch and keeping things ticking. Auntie May, you're 90 now, so let's just keep that big 9 rolling and continue to take care of yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been listening to Maritime Matters. With that, I am Captain Glenn Bain, and I say Maritime Matters out.
Look like nothing